Hey everybody, I want to get on here real quick as I'm prepping for a Zoom today, but also for the class, the Zoom intensive this Thursday. It is on edits and changes, edits and changes, edits and changes and updates to the rebuild recovery sections of my book. The rebuild section is the training section and the recovery section speaks for itself. But there's a lot that I need to go into since I've changed a lot in how I implement principles and concepts from when I published in 2018. And so again, I was just even going through just some of the moves because there's 50 movements listed in pictures and descriptions. Even just how to utilize those more effectively across populations. If you look at how I've kind of done things, the hanging Zoom alone, so the Zoom intensive just on hanging, if I could pull out and go deeper into each one of these, hanging alone was 2 hours. Calf jump spinal hygiene was 70 minutes. So again, and that's what people get as prep work for my full evals, is I need them to go into those two classes to own that information before we start. So again, that's 3 to 4 hours of information on two sections of movements. So you can imagine what this will be like going in. Now, is it going to be 2 hours per movement on this? That doesn't make any sense. But looking at the programming, because there's beginner, intermediate, and advanced programming in the rebuild section. If you have my book, you understand that. If you don't, you can kind of follow along with this. I want to share and shed light on how to utilize it even more, where beginner, intermediate, advanced will make sense. The trial test we've already covered in part one, but just even putting the moves together into and factoring it in and fitting it into your life, wherever you're at. Specific injuries, that's a whole nother animal. That's reserved for one-on-ones for obvious reasons. But just looking at the programming is brilliant, but there are so many things that we can break down and pull apart and change so that you can literally, instead of sitting here regurgitating the things that are in this book, how can you utilize it even more? And so just looking at the programming, it's 104 pages with the movement descriptions, with the programs laid out. I was just kind of talking to myself about this, and that section alone is going to take up a lot of time, but I want you to have that. That's the point. If you've had the book and you've been implementing these things and experimenting with these things and going into your own lives and seeing the changes that you've been earning, here's even more, right? And again, these are the same rules that I follow, the same laws that I follow, because I won't give somebody something that I'm not implementing myself. How does that make sense? And then the recovery section. There's a ton in there. I mean, God, we go over, even in the training section, we go over shoes and bare feet. There's a whole lot I have to say there. For you guys that did my foot Zoom, that was 3 hours of just feet. You understand the depths of what I had to talk about when it came to shoes and when it came to bare feet, the truth about bare feet. So I will be touching upon that. So there's a lot in here. There's a lot within these sections. If you even just look, the rebuild section, bringing the body back into balance, rules. That's me teaching people the re-evolution routines. There's beginner, intermediate, advanced, again, laid out in programming style. There's just ways to make it more effective, more digestible. These are the movements. So many things to change and add or subtract or take away, or ways to enhance these moves. Kneeling drop push-ups, groiners, lunge bounces, lunge holds, loaded lunge holds, prisoner squats, push-up hold bottom, quick style bicep curls, scap hang, which is hanging, scorpions, tons, straight leg raises, standing straight leg raises, fantastic. Statue of Liberty's toe touches, vertical jump to lunge, and that's just the training section. So again, a lot. There's a lot that I want you to know. And the premise of this Zoom is really not that far-fetched from how I do follow-ups or how people have been utilizing follow-ups. So past a Zoom eval where we go 3-4 hours, sometimes more, to break down everything specific to an injury or concern that you might have. And then not just training, because training is an element, but it's an essential, but it's got to fit in with some other rules and laws and other things that we have to tend to in our lives. And it has to fit seamlessly, and it can't just be forced, and it can't be in program fashion. Every single person's got to be different. So, but after that, people are off. They've got everything they would need to move forward and change their lives. And then they start to create these changes and either get stuck or want to run experiments by me that they've tried or had some breakthroughs, or it ends up being, TJ, I want to schedule a follow-up because I just want to see how you've changed since the last time we've talked, which was over a year ago or whatever it was. And I'm like, that's brilliant, because I am constantly pulling these things apart and constantly challenging these rules, laws, and concepts that we all have to abide by as humans, and infinitely implementing them in my life. And I've had many injuries, and I've had things happen, even just the car accident. Schedule a follow-up with me just to see what the healing was like with that and how I played by these rules within my life. So again, I've had follow-ups to my Zooms be based around kind of how I'm doing this Zoom with the book. So you had a session with me in that you bought my book, right? That was the supposed breakthrough where you were at least exposed to everything, and it's 300 and something pages long. So that's pulling it apart. And if you're going into it, you're not reading it in a day. You're not reading it and understanding it in a week. It's a lifetime of concept. This took me 15 years to come up with this stuff, 16 years to come up with these things on my own. Learning from other people, right? Learning from implementing them in my life. And so then 2018 was when I exposed everybody to it. All right. So now here's a follow-up. What has changed within me applying all of this? Because I'm not a youth sports participant. You might not be a youth sports participant. That's why this thing is very deceiving with how we marketed it and how we titled it and how it cuts out a huge portion of the population not being youth or sports oriented people. And that's why it has very little to do with youth or sports. And that was my secret plan, but you can't satisfy everything in publishing, and that's part of it. So again, it's applying everything from the book, concepts, rules, principles. Have I done this programming on my own? Programs, beginner, intermediate, advanced? Absolutely not. I would never. But you give them in the book. I need to explain why they were given that way in the book, and why I would never do them in the way that they're set up in the book. But you're understanding there has to be the human element coming in. Yes, there are laws, principles, and rules that we got to play by. But just checking off a box and cramming in more of systems, right, and methods. So what's changed, and how do I apply everything that I've got here that I've provided in this publication? That is what I'm touching upon. That's why part 1 was 2.5 hours. That was just the rethink, replenish, nutrition sections, right? And so this is the rebuild, recover section, the closing, and I'm going to expose some things that I covered in the first one as well, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed. But plan on 2 hours, plan on 2 to 3 hours. It's going to be heavy. There's going to be a lot of information. Bring your book if you have it. If not, don't worry about it. But if you do the Zoom and you register in the live at this investment level, you will have 7 days from the end of that to view and review. That is something I'm gifting to the group because it's a lot of information. I want you to break it apart. And then after that 7 days, it's going to Uscreen, just like all the other ones that I've done for weekly rentals. Week for a reason. 7 days for a reason at a value level that's comparable to where we're both gaining. And we both are receiving. So, and it's fair. Not really, but you understand. Very lopsided with what's being given and what's being gained. So rebuild, recover sections, the training and recovery sections. Come ready to probably move a little bit, I would say, too. I might have you try certain things, or I might give you some time to experiment with some of the things we're going to talk about, to apply some of the rules changes to these movements and some of the inputs I'm going to say on some things that I've changed and expanded upon. So there's that. 10.5 minutes. Might be too long for you, considering people are only watching about 14 seconds of this. Hope to see you there in 2 days. Please email if you want to register and submit your questions. info@TommyJohnIII.com. Questions being concerns or questions on what you've been utilizing within the book so far. How your body has responded. What expand your mind. What has come to your head? What has come to your heart when you've been applying these things, or you've been experimenting with these things? Ask. I will cover it, assuming it pertains to things in the book. All right. 2 days. I'll see everybody Thursday night, 5 p.m. Pacific. And again, there will be a replay, assuming it gets recorded and technologically everything goes. But we got to get there first. So let's start with just doing it on Thursday night, 5 p.m. Pacific. I'll see everybody there. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Ready to change.